físico, activista de la privacidad y los derechos en Internet y un gran hacker. En este caso es el fundador del proyecto hackers.town y es un ferviente colaborador del mítico grupo de la escena del hacking internacional The Cult of the Dead Cow. Hoy en The Hacker Style volvemos a traer historia a nuestro canal con The Gibson. ¡Comenzamos! Hola mundo, os doy la bienvenida a este capítulo número 29 de The Hacker Style. Hoy tenemos otro de esos grandes capítulos. Va a ser muy cortito porque no tiene mucho tiempo y tenemos una diferencia horaria un poco complicada para poder sincronizarnos, pero va a ser muy intenso. Hoy vamos a hablar con The Gibson. The Gibson es de esas personas que estuvo en los comienzos de Internet, que estuvo en los comienzos de la DEFCON. Vamos a hablar bastante de los eventos, de cómo él los ve, de cómo han cambiado, de cómo es el underground, de cómo es un poco la esencia del hacking en Estados Unidos y en qué se está convirtiendo la distopía en la que estamos viviendo ahora de control y de comercialización absolutamente de todo, de nuestro tiempo, de nuestra atención, de nuestras vidas. O vamos a hablar con The Gibson, que él va a representar de alguna manera ese deseo que teníamos siempre de conocer a gente del culto de la vaca muerta. Así que cualquiera que sepa de lo que estoy hablando sabe que a continuación lo que va a ver es puramente historia. Así que disfrutarla.
So here we are with the great The Gibson from the Cult of the Dead Cow. I'm really glad to have you here. And my first question is really easy. How are you? How do you feel?
I do want to make one thing clear. I am not a member of the Cult of the Dead Cow. I am friends with them. I do work on projects with them. We like to think of Hackers.town as being the Rohan to their Gondor, right? If they have something going on, we're going to lend aid if possible. So I just want to make that clear because I don't want any confusion on that because people get get upset.
No.
Sort of
But
so.
for me, you are a kind of person who knows about the story, who has really nice projects. So for these people, whatever. But many thanks.
I know this is a me thing. I don't want anybody to say to think otherwise. But yes, thanks for being here. I'm doing great. It's been a heck of a year. We launched Valid at DEF CON this year. Hackers.town has been going as strong as ever.
Nice.
And we're on that front, we're continuing into our seventh year, going on 8th year of Hackers.town. So that's cool. Things are going well. We're doing well.
No, I'm really, really happy at that. Hackerstown, the big project, I know it a lot of years ago. I mean, like Hackerstown, for example, has a really nice map of the hack labs. I don't know if it is it would keep updated. Hack labs around the world. Hackerstown have the map. Is that updated?
I'm not the one that puts that one together. I think it is. We had some issues earlier this year with some of our infrastructure. I need to go check and see where that's at actually, but I think it's still updated. Yes.
Nice. So I want to tell you the first questions will be about a bit of the story of the Cult of the Dead Cow, because you are this link. And my question is, what does it mean for you, the Cult of the Dead Cow?
I've been asked this more than once, and for me, that organization was there kind of at the very beginning of my run into this world of hacking, whatever you want to call it. 88, 89, I first started logging on to bulletin board servers, and pretty quickly, a couple of friends of mine and I, we were in middle school. We were in 7th, 8th grade, 8th grade, and we found Cult of the Dead Cow T files and just started reading this stuff, and it was insanity, right? It was
Yeah,
just mind
totally,
blowing,
totally.
and you know that kind of set at least two of the three of us, onto this sort of path, and so for me it was kind of, you would check back in every few years, right? In a way, you would kind of update with what had happened with them since the last time. And over the 90s, it was like every time I would check in, it was more and more applicable to what our world was becoming, right? It was starting to be, they were starting to become closer to what we had evolving with the birth of the internet, at
Mhm,
least the commercial internet, the common internet,
mhm.
and moving into the future era. 99 was the first time I had ever gone to DEF CON, right?
Oh, nice.
And that was DEF CON 7, I believe. Anyway, that was the DEF CON that Cult of the Dead Cow launched back over Fist 2K. I didn't know this was going on, right? I just went to DEF CON to go to DEF CON. I had lost my first real job and got a big severance package, right? And I had some money. So it's like, oh, I'm going to DEF CON.
Nice.
And I go out there, and I accidentally got to be there for this giant, massive, crazy
Yeah,
party for the Back Orifice 2K
amazing.
launch. Right. And so, you know, they were rock stars. They still are. But I mean, back then it was like, I didn't want to even try to approach anybody there, right? It was like that's a whole different tier.
Yeah, yeah, legends. Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right. Everybody, I mean, these are kind of, in a way, some of the founders of what became our culture, and what do you even do there?
Yeah, yeah.
So to me, they're kind of this legendary part of the map. Now, you know, there's a lot of talk about I've heard more people like, oh, they're not technical, they're not really hackers. The truth of the matter is they do a little bit of everything.
Of
So
course.
there is the hacking side of it, the deep technical side of it, and there is this part of it where it's very much a marketing effort, right?
Yeah,
But
and the
that's
manifestos, oh,
right. But that's how you break into the mainstream to get your message out. You have to be able to play that game, right? There's two parts to it,
mhm.
and
Agree.
so this has kind of chased them the whole time I've known about them, right? There's always been people who are like, it's not real. Well, yeah, but except every time they do something, it goes big. There's big
Yeah.
news about it,
Mhm,
right?
mhm,
So um, in 2002, I kind of backed off. No, 2001, I kind of backed out of the scene. I was at the point in my life where I was like, okay, I'm gonna get married. I'm gonna start a family. I need to be legit. This is dangerous to be around some of this stuff. I'm gonna, there were a few other things that kind of made me go, yeah, it's
yeah.
it's not my thing anymore. And fast forward to 2016,
Mhm,
and some political events in my country may have made me have some opinion suddenly,
uh-huh,
and so I started Hackers.town, right?
mhm,
And the idea I had when starting that was we were going to kind of cargo cult some of the Cult of the Dead Cow's teachings
mhm,
and see if we could make good things in the world happen.
mhm,
And we
mhm,
have a few rules. We try not to break in a few philosophies we try to follow there. One of them is, we're not really going to be destructive, right?
mhm,
We don't want to be we don't want law enforcement entanglements. We
mhm,
don't want that's not the goal of this, is not to be
mhm.
that team. We want to build new things from scratch, right? We want to take things and build new systems that free people from
To empower the citizens. Yeah, yeah.
corporate oppression, privacy problems, whatever, right?
Mhm, mhm,
And so that's kind of what we focused on, and it's for the greater good. Now,
mhm, mhm.
2019, I had kind of been batting this idea around of us starting some projects, and I went back to DEF CON the first time in 20 years.
Wow.
I go back to DEF CON, and it's the same time that Joseph Men's Cult of the Dead Cow book is released. And
Mhm,
the Cult of the Dead Cow is basically taking over DEF CON when I show up again.
mhm.
It was like going to church, right? It was like I,
Yeah.
I was I was suddenly filled with this fire that I needed to go out and do this. And so I ended up talking to a couple of them, meeting a couple of them there, just in passing, introducing myself. A few of them I had made friends with Hackers.town. They had started kind of showing up in our orbit a little bit,
Nice.
and then about right at the beginning of the pandemic. So just about a year after that, actually, early 2020.
Mhm.
Dill Dog showed up for, we used to do Jitsi chats for Hackers.town, for our project work. And Dill Dog shows up for one. And he had told me, it was funny because he had seen me post about having these meetings. And he was like, well, just remind me and I'll show up for one eventually. I was like, okay, sure. So I keep reminding him. And I felt like I was just annoying him, really, because I'm like, hey, you told me to remind you. So here's your reminder. And he shows up at one and he starts to outline this idea of using cryptographic keys and signatures
Mhm.
only as messaging, no other real content. And he starts to map out this whole idea right there on this call. And like, there's probably 10 of us on this call, and like
Mhm.
all of them except for me and Dill Dog are just dead quiet. It's like, this legend had shown up and they all knew it, and it's like, oh, they're
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
And so we talked for a while, and he maybe 30 minutes in leaves. And when he does, it was like all of us, it kind of dawned on us like, wait, what is he working on? Oh, wait, what? Oh, wait, this is a privacy tool. He's talking about building basically a social networking privacy mechanism.
Mhm.
And so fast forward to DEF CON 2021,
Mhm.
because there was no real 20. Everybody was remote for 20, right?
Mhm.
So 2021, DEF CON 29, I think. Um, it was a very small conference. There
Mhm.
was maybe, I think they said there were 10,000 attendees, but it really felt more like 3,000, right? It
Wow.
was very small.
Mhm.
And it was during the pandemic, so travel was difficult. You're taking risky behavior to get there no matter what you did. It was just kind of what it was. And
Mhm.
in some way,
Mhm.
and I don't condone the risks we took to get there because of the personal health risks and such, but in some way, that con going so much smaller
Mhm.
and everybody there knowing they had to take risk to be there
Yeah. Uh-huh.
made it something very different that year,
Of course,
right?
more authentic for sure.
It really was. It felt like it did back in the 90s, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And so, um, Dill Dog, at a party that we both go to regularly, um, stops me. He said, like, hey, you remember that social networking thing?
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah. He's
Mhm.
like, you want to do this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because when the Cult of the Dead Cow says, do you want to do this? You go, yes. That's
Mhm.
the answer. So, he and Medusa and TC and I start
Mhm.
to kind of work out what this is going to look like and start putting plans together. I'm not as technical as I used to be, right? I've been
Mhm.
doing this a long time. I wish I were more technical
Mhm.
still than I am, but um, you know, we started to put together a team to develop this. We had
Mhm.
planned on launching it in at DEF CON 30 in
Mhm.
2022.
Mhm.
Um, Turns out it's a really heavy lift to build out an entirely new internet
It is.
framework, right?
Yeah.
So um, we fast forward to DEF CON 31 this past year. We were able to get the launch done.
Mhm.
Um, Now the framework is still pretty rudimentary. There's a lot of work to go, right? There's been a lot of work put in, and what we've done is be able to put together this project with the Cult of Dead Cow and a
Mhm.
lot of Hackers.town people pitching in as well,
Nice.
to kind of build the basis for a new internet that is privacy first.
Mhm. Of
And
course.
and so to me, that is the nutshell of what everything the Cult of the Dead Cow has ever done. It's influenced other hackers and other groups to see that there can be a better tomorrow, right?
Mhm.
Even if it's goofy, even if it's something that's a joke internally
Mhm.
to them, it's still culturally relevant, right? And there's a way to take these things and build out entire new frameworks, right? And so with the advent of, I mean, with the internet turning into what it's turned into over the past 20 years, right? And becoming more and more corporatized,
What's
and
happened with the internet? Yeah. What's
there's
happened?
like five websites, right? That's it. I don't even know what else it is.
Yeah.
Um,
And two countries, United States and
yeah,
China.
yeah, right.
Because,
So, no, you're exactly right. It should not be this way.
just two countries are managing all the internet.
Right. That was not the internet we were promised, right?
No,
That's not
no.
the internet that any of us wanted.
Mhm.
And I yelled about that a lot over the years, and it turns out other people showed up for the party, and we were able to do this. So
Mhm.
now the Daylid Foundation is a nonprofit that kind of is there to get people to start taking up
Mhm.
the protocol and developing under it.
Nice.
And I'm a director on that, along
Okay.
with Dildog and Metis 4. Sorry, I keep messing that one up.
Mhm.
Uh, and yeah, so we basically are working diligently to get this thing adopted and see some more applications built on top of it, so that we can start to build out this more robust privacy and security framework.
Mhm. And a lot of questions, a lot of things to talk with you. For example,
Mhm.
the first one, how many members has the Hackerstown?
I think our actual count is around 400, but really we've got maybe 100 people that are active at any given
Nice,
time.
really nice.
And it goes up and down depending on how many
Mhm.
people are just available.
And are you working with universities? Because sometimes to the students to have credits or something like this, or other non-profit foundations can provide you people to code and you know.
Right.
Mhm.
So Valid, we have done some endorsements for students.
Nice,
I know
nice.
that's happened.
Mhm.
I don't think we've gotten to the point of having any actual cooperation with them. Hackers.town is as a standalone entity. We have some professors there, but no, it is very much more of a you have to know somebody to get in sort of thing. So we try to avoid
Yeah.
getting any kind of work beyond that. Now that said, one of our members' students did track me down at
Mhm.
DEF CON this year,
Mhm.
uh, as part of basically a CTF for his professor to find me.
Mhm.
So we do certainly overlap some, but no formal
Mhm.
no formal cooperation.
Yeah, I worked with the ENL network, which is from the Netherlands. They provide some funds to free software, projects, and there are people everywhere. A lot of questions for you. For example, what about the DEF CON? Has changed from the past? Was more underground before? Is now more commercial? What do you think?
I've got a lot of opinions on this.
Yeah, because you were a lot of years, so.
Yeah, I mean, I was there early on once, and I remember what that was like. And even then, some people would tell you it had grown too much, right? It's huge.
It's
It's
really huge.
35,000 people, I think, now last
And,
year.
a lot of, because remember that before it was a conference without the police, without the corporation, and 1 year opened the doors to this
Mhm.
new scene, which is nice to be there. It's nice, of course, but I don't know if this changes the sense
I
of the
think
meeting.
I think all we really do, I think all it really did was put them more out in the open, right? And I think that's good,
Mhm.
because they were there before. Let's be real. I
Yeah,
mean,
but they were undercover.
right? They weren't necessarily welcome there, but they were there.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I think that decision, when it was made, was actually a wise one. A
Mhm.
lot of people would disagree with me, and I get that. I see both sides of it.
Yeah.
But to me, I think there's some legitimacy to just saying the true part out loud. That yes, there are feds here, and yes, there are spies here, and
Mhm.
yes, there are corporations recruiting here. Let's not pretend like they aren't, right?
Mhm.
Um, that said, spot the Fed games got a lot easier after that, right? So if
Mhm.
they're out in the open, it's way easier to find them. But overall, I think there's good and bad with what's happened. I
Mhm.
think I think the community has gotten a lot more open, and I think that's good ultimately, because it allows us to combat the idea that hacking is crime, because
Mhm.
that's not the same, right?
Mhm. Of course.
And so I think that's good, and I think we've become more accepting of people that may be from marginalized groups being a part of it than we used to be, right? Including people from other countries, so on and so forth. That's become better.
But they have the black hat, no? They have the black
What's that?
hat. They have
Oh yeah,
the black hat. Why
yeah.
not make one for the community and another more open? I don't know, because black hat is really more commercial than DEF CON. I don't know what
Oh
do you
yeah,
think?
Black Hat is just a corporate event, right? I mean,
Marketing thing.
yeah,
So.
yeah, yeah. It's funny because every time people hear I'm going to, because for my work I end up a Black Hat every year, right?
Mhm.
And still got to pay the bills, you know. But
Yeah.
the uh, the thing is, everybody always asks me for swag from DEF CON, and I'm like, there's not really swag at DEF CON. I can bring you a bunch of Black Hat crap. I mean, I can get that all day long. But DEF CON, I mean, it's like you're paying for a T-shirt if you want one, and that's cool, right? That's good. It funds the thing, but it's very different because like everybody expects free stuff to come from a conference, and to me, that's actually become an indicator of when you can how you can tell if someone's actually kind of from the hacker world or from the infosec world, right? It's like,
Mhm,
oh, get me
mhm.
swag from DEF CON. There is no swag from DEF CON. You're not getting you stickers. I can get you stickers. That's about all you can get, right?
Mhm.
Uh, but I think the infosec focus that's come along, because there is one.
Mhm.
I won't say it's focused on infosec, but there's more of an infosec presence, right,
Mhm.
than a hacking presence in many of the events at DEF CON now. I think there's some issues there, right? I
Okay.
like what it's done to reduce the elitism a little bit and get more people that might be interested in. I
Mhm.
don't really care for the fact that a large chunk of DEF CON has become dedicated to infosec topics instead of hacking.
Mhm.
So, you know, that said, I still love it. It's a great event,
Uh,
and it does good for the community. So I really can't complain about it much. But
of course, it's okay. I come, or we come from Europe, no, from the Chaos Computer Club. We have a different vision of these kind of events. I like. I don't know if you were in the Chaos Computer Club event, but it is nice because they provide us one nice space for the infosec community, but they have like slots only for community people that
right,
cannot be removed. So it's kind of trying to be a bit more in the mood of the community, more than the infosec try to stay. They provide places to be there, but not to have all the event for them. That's one thing. And the other thing is like uh, um, and probably the Hackerstown, probably you create this project because of the ethical hacking, no? The idea of the ethical thing to create
mhm,
a better world. And the
right,
marketing and these corporations are not, the book of Stephen Levy, no, the hackers, was the wizards of the new era,
mhm,
and he provided like a kind of ethical glossary. And I think like when you for example explain that the cult of the dead count and the Hackerstown was a little divided because you prefer to build, you were more in the mood of this ethical hacker. Don't break stuff, don't make crimes, just build things for the citizens and create a better world. And my opinion is like this infosec community is like selling stuff, not creating a better world. So for me, I prefer this Chaos Computer Club,
mhm.
you know, uh, 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 idea of an event. But of course, I don't know. I mean, DEF CON is the biggest conference around the world. We saw then the biggest hackers, no? Kevin Mitnick, I don't know. It's like the place. But
Mhm.
what I listening from other people is like they prefer the DEF CON from previous years, the 19th, end of the 19th, and more
Mhm.
underground, but that's depend, of course. And and
Yeah.
and here my question, tell me if you want.
No, no. Go ahead. Go ahead.
My question is, what does it mean for you to be a hacker? What does it mean?
Yeah, for me early on, I don't think it's changed. The substrate, the
Mhm,
the the actual the actual things that are interesting have changed,
mhm,
but the 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 core concept, at least to me, and I don't know that there's a correct definition here, right? But to me, it hasn't changed much. It's exploratory. It's finding out what we can do. It's finding out how we can take technology and maybe use it in unintended ways to get something new, right?
mhm.
Um, I don't see it as any different than any other science, really,
Mhm.
right?
Nice.
If you're documenting what you're doing, this becomes a science, right? And so I think there's a lot of different pieces to it. I think we've kind of grown into this bigger thing where even aspects of like the maker movement
Mhm.
are in there,
For
and
example.
you've got hardware hacking, you have certainly software and network and all these different substrates that have kind of shown up over the years that didn't exist early on.
Mhm.
Um, I remember when it was I came in right at the tail end of what of what the freaker culture probably peaked at. Right,
Mhm.
I was not there for most of that, but I got
Wow.
to see the very end of it,
Nice.
and that's a transition, and there's been so many transitions over that time to the substrate underneath of what you might be hacking on or learning.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, it's really all about that spirit of learning and possibly subverting a system to get different outcomes, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
It's one of the reasons I think CDC and Hackers.town have been successful at what we do, because
Mhm.
it really is about not only the technical side of subverting or building something new and something revolutionary, but it's about the social side of being able to subvert those concepts and ideas and turn them into something new.
Mhm.
I mean, when we launched Valid, we hadn't even gotten home from DEF CON yet
Mhm.
when we started seeing all these news articles show up, and I mean, some of them were even before DEF CON, right? We're starting to trickle out,
Mhm.
um, and I mean, even video articles on news channels and stuff were covering this, and I realized it didn't matter if we succeeded.
Mhm.
We'd already changed the way people were talking about
It
privacy.
was
We
passion.
pulled right. We had pulled the window over, and now people weren't talking about privacy like it was this evil bad thing that only bad people use. We had changed the way people talked about it in the space of 1 week. Like major media outlets in 1 week were now saying how privacy was a good thing, and this was a new tool that could get you there. That was the power we needed to see. That's really what we're doing, right? So there's the social side to it that a lot of people want to talk down about because it's not technical. It's technical in its own right,
Mhm.
um, but that's the biggest piece, right? If you
Mhm.
can't do that, you're not getting the outcomes you want when you want to make a big bang like this.
Mhm. Really nice explanation. This lateral thinking, no, the can
Mhm,
be. But for example, the people who fix cars, the cars,
mhm,
no, these people are hackers. Also, they change the pieces, they make more cheaper. They make mods. I mean, like for us, this channel, this podcast is the hacker style. One of the most frequently definition is like the hackers is not only related with computer science
mhm,
or just computers, which is a kind of form to be on in life, to
mhm,
have a perspective of life, to make the things better, more easier, to work for a better world, to try to fix the world and to protect the important things of the life of the people. So I really agree, and I like how you explain the term. Here we're gonna talk a bit more about you. And my question here is if you have any interesting project that you want to comment right now that you are working on.
I mean, outside of Valid, I'm
Mhm.
pretty happy about that one. Um, we've had a few other projects out there that have been very interesting to me. I like a lot of the open source hardware projects we're seeing.
Mhm.
Um, MNT, if you're familiar with their laptop designs they put out, they're really good.
Nice.
Um,
Yeah.
you know, uh, I know it's kind of for profit, kind of not, but Pine 64 has been doing some amazing stuff over the years, and I really like what they've put out there. Um, I regularly abuse their products. That's something
Well.
that's very good. Um, you know, pardon me. Excuse me. Um, so recently, I think probably my favorite projects I've seen recently come down to different privacy, and there's a ton of these privacy projects out
A
there.
lot.
Not not entirely, which tells me there's a need, right? Not entirely unlike what we've done with Valid. I think that there's so much room for growth out there in how we can approach these issues because it's a when we think about how privacy has been subverted,
Mhm.
all of a sudden you see that it's not just one solution that gets you there, right? It's just like they didn't do it overnight. We're not going to do it overnight, right?
Of
So
course.
one of my favorite projects, and it's kind of a small project and it's not well known.
Mhm.
One of our things at hackers.town was Project Oni.
Mhm.
And that stands for Optimistic Nihilists Incorporated,
LOL.
right? That was the joke. But one of the projects that was on that um, was something as simple as a self-hosted DNS over HTTPS
Perfect.
server, right? That just didn't keep logs.
Perfect.
Simple as that. There aren't the privacy policy is we don't collect log anything.
Nice,
So
nice, because the ESP, the internet service providers, and
mhm,
are more aggressive with this, and we
mhm,
need to have our own infrastructure. I can tell you a lot of different projects. I am working right now with a project of a social network using the blockchain, which is called
mhm.
Oasis. And there are a lot of different projects, Mastodon. I know. I think that the Germans have a word called the say haste. And
Mhm.
I think that we, the hackers community, have this say haste that we need to make a new different internet against
Yes.
this Instagram, this TikTok, and these other projects. No, but
I mean, even ActivityPub is being overrun by threads right now, right? I mean, Facebook is here. The monster is at the gates, so to speak. So, yeah, you're exactly right. There's definitely a need for whatever comes next to happen now. That's what we were trying to get to with Valid. I think we're part of the way there, but building an app on top of it to replace something like Mastodon takes time too. Uh, One of the other projects, I want to get this one in here real quick because I think it's beautiful because of how simple it is. um, there is a project that was also part of Project Oni called Watt Campaign. Okay, and all it is, it's a plugin for your browser that replaces tracking data with the words "fuck you." So no, it's not really going to give you
elegant.
privacy, but
Yeah,
it does poison the data set a little bit, right?
perfect.
And so if you had enough people using it in mass, all of a
Mhm.
sudden there would be a single identity that was based around this new key that we created instead of them. And it's more to mess with them, but that's part of it, right? Is being
Of
able to
course.
send that message back. So
Mhm.
um, that one was probably my favorite we did out of that project era. But yeah, sorry, go ahead. I just thought about
No,
that
no,
one.
no, no. Really nice. I mean, like we were talking off the record that I was talking with Tim Berners-Lee, and
Mhm.
he was the creator of the World Wide Web, the first browser, and he's really angry with the internet. And we all the hackers see that this internet is not the internet we built in the past. So whatever project that reverse this, even like this one, like you say, well, it's stupid, but it's really nice because it's the community against the things that they don't
Right.
like. That's the essence, no, the root of the things. Whatever, fuck you, but it's to make community again. Because Google and this, you mean Meta, no? That of course, remember that Meta stole to us the XMPP protocol because we had really nice protocols, OpenID, XMPP, ActivePub. So I hope that whatever we create in different places in this haste, it's federated. We need to refederate the internet. This is my opinion. Not just distribute and use privacy, but also to federate, to connect stuff. Because if not, we will create another protocol, another different networks in different places, and we will never be a really nice community as we
It's
should.
it's funny you bring that up because when we were planning Valid, one of the things that really came into our our minds putting this whole thing together, one of the guiding principles were there are these three simple diagrams that Paul Baran put out in 1963, I think, and they outlined the three models of communication networks, right? And one was centralized. That was the first one. It was just the big dot in the middle and a bunch of dots talking to that,
Which is winning right now.
which is winning right now. And the next one is federated. I think he called it it wasn't federated. It might have been, yes, it was distributed is the word he used, but it's a federated network. And you have, kind of more of a mesh of nodes, but nodes connecting to each node on that. And that looked pretty good. But the one that when we started looking at these
Decentralized.
three, it really came down to the third one is what we went for, and that was distributed, right? And distributed has kind of become synonymous with blockchain efforts, things like that, and that's fine. I'm not judging on that. But what I am saying is that we wanted to avoid blockchain or anything. We wanted our own system, right? That was kind of separate, and we do use DHT storage, so kind of similar, in concept.
I know.
But we wanted to go where every node on the network basically had no weighting to it. They're all the same value, right? Now you could, some nodes could provide more resources or whatever. That was up to whoever runs it. But ultimately, everyone was a one-to-one relationship on this network.
But my question is the complexity of the search to search for content in a distributed. It's really difficult. I mean, I like, for example, the hybrid, an hybrid approach, which is, for example, the network of Catmelia, which was used by Emule. So you have distributed nodes, but you have some trackers that try to federate the content, because if not, it will be. I don't know how you think in the complexity of to search content in a really decentralized network. This is really difficult.
The DHT.
Yes,
That's where we're storing it. So we have a common resource we can build that off of. That said, it is complicated, right? It's not a simple problem. And I don't want to make it sound like we've got it all figured out yet. We're still working on that. But the DHT is our answer basically. And the thing is, with the way Valid works, content that isn't necessarily high value, right? It will not stay on the DHT. It will age out, right? So
Okay.
I want to be clear on this. We're far more ephemeral than most probably are, right? And that's by design. We want that. We want if someone wants something to go away, for it to be able to go away, right?
Nice idea.
So that's kind of our take on it, and how we're solving that is using that DHT storage as the central repository in a way. So you're really just looking at hashes that you're aware of, and that's your search function at the end of the day. It's not all the way there yet, but we've had some success, and we think we can do it. So
I
we're
hope
gonna
so.
keep working up path.
I hope so.
Yeah.
We will put in the description of this interview, the project, so people can just take a look. And let's go a bit more forward. This question is: if you do you remember when you started with the internet, and what was your first computer?
My first computer was a Sinclair ZX81 in 1981.
Lol.
It was not on the internet.
Yeah, of course.
But my dad was a hobbyist, and he taught me to write in BASIC probably before I could write in English, right? So I jokingly say that I am a native speaker of BASIC. But yeah, so it's that was my first one. After that, there was a Texas Instruments 994A, a couple IBM clones, AT and XT. I never really had an Apple in the 80s, because that was the expensive shit, and we were not able to afford that. So I had friends that had Apples, and I was always jealous of them. But
The Apple One or the Apple Two? The Apple.
The 2E.
The
It was
2.
the 2E era. So it might have been a 2C in there, but so we I actually think I got an advantage from that, though, because my hardware was able to be modified, right? So I had these IBM XTs and such, and it was stuff that I could take apart and add an expansion card to, and really, kind of. So I know that Apple's had some of that too, but it was way less common with those for people to do that,
Mhm.
and the hardware was more expensive. So,
Mhm.
I think I had some advantage there, and ultimately because I got to, because I was poor,
Mhm.
get to
Mhm.
do something neat with this. So um, after that, there's just I mean the '90s were a series of whatever boxes I could get my
Clones.
hands on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember cobbling a couple from parts that friends just gave me or donated, or I was able to dig up wherever. So if I had a true hacker era, it was probably '89 through '99. Just whatever resources I could find to get online and do whatever I had to do. Right. Um, First time I went on the internet would have been '93. That
Wow,
was
nice.
at my university at the time. Well, let me take that back. Technically, we had a VAX that had a sharing system that I was on the internet before, but that was still '93. That would have been early '93.
Mhm.
So, yeah, still '93.
With this modem, no? Baudios, no? We was
Oh,
with
yeah,
a
that would have been a 14.4K modem, I think. So, yeah, pretty slow on that one. A 28.8, I didn't get to like 94, 95, and the 56K was like 96, 97. So,
Mhm.
um, and by that point, cable modem started showing up. So, that was already dead by the time it got to me. But so thinking about that, BBSs were before that, 88,
Mhm.
89
Mhm.
era, but
Usenet,
actual
Usenet.
a little bit of Usenet, yeah.
Mhm.
The but proper internet that would have been 93, 94.
Mhm. Nice. And here, do you remember your first operating system distribution? Your first Unix? When was? Or
Let me think about that. Um, I didn't really get so much into Unix and Linux until mid 90s.
Mhm.
Mandrake, I think, was my first one I really dug into from a personal side of things.
Mhm.
That would have been 97, maybe. It's been a while. I'm trying to
Wow.
think. Um, so 97, 98, maybe. I don't really remember. But Mandrake Linux would probably have been the first one I really dug into. I had a lot of friends who were in before that, and
Mhm.
I don't know, for whatever reason, I didn't. I have always been kind of agnostic to OS, and I know everybody hates it when I say that, but I really am kind of a right tool for the right job as far as OS goes. So I don't, you'll hear me yell about EULAs when it comes to personal privacy, but like for whether it's Windows or Mac OS or,
Mhm.
BSD or Linux, I'll learn what I need to learn using any one of them and get the job done however I need to, right? So
Mhm.
to me, over the years, that's turned into a kind of a siloed approach to how I use it. Like if I'm standing up a server, yeah, you
Mhm.
better believe it's going to be a Linux server, right? But
Mhm.
um, at the same time, I don't really care. Like my personal workstation,
Mhm.
it might be Windows at the base level, but then due to virtualization, how many Linux boxes can I have? How many, whatever.
Mhm.
So I'm one of those that I don't really have a fight over that.
Mhm.
Um, Unix, I'm trying to think. I
My
don't really remember.
my
I know
first
I did a lot. I had a lot of Solaris and I guess Sun OS, 95, 96.
my first one was Fedora, and I think it was in the '98 or something like this. This
Yeah.
Fedora thing.
Hmm.
After that, I had the SUSE, and after
Hmm.
that, Debian, and I was in
Yeah.
Debian. Uh,
Yeah. I use a lot of Debian and honestly, I use a lot of headless Ubuntu for server work still. It's
Mhm.
fine. It does the
Mhm.
job just fine.
I think so. Mhm. So let's forward a bit more in this nice interview. And the question here is if you can tell us some anecdote related to hacking, something that you want, or you can tell to us.
Right. Right. Um, my favorite I think was when I started first getting into BBS systems.
Mm.
Um, I found I lived in a very rural area and there weren't many systems to connect to. And I had found all these lists of numbers for BBS systems all over the US. And at the time, and this is an alien concept to most people today, but at the time, long distance charges were significant,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so the problem with this, of course, is when you start calling even the next county over from where you are, you would get a large phone bill at the end of the month. In the first month of that, I think and this seems insignificant now almost, but at the time, I mean, these are '80s dollars.
Hmm.
I ran up like a $500 phone bill like the
Hmm.
first month, just dialing up remote BBSs for stupid reasons because I could, because I had found this new world and I wasn't about to let it go, right? And so uh, my dad got pretty angry with me, and I heard no end to that, and that's when I found out that my father, being the hobbyist that he was kind of sort of not part of, but adjacent to that freaker scene from the '70s and early
Hmm.
'80s, and
Nice.
so he helped me build some tools that I'm not going to get into details here that could tone generate to get around
Wow.
maybe running up those phone bills because he didn't want to dissuade me either. It turned out he saw that this was an opportunity for me, and so uh, I don't. At this point, that's been way too long to be any kind of problem crime wise. And at the time, I don't think, I still don't think I consider it crime, but, um, it was a story that I tell occasionally on that front because it's so funny to me because how much the way we do things has changed since then, showing there's not even really long distance bills anymore. You don't even use a phone to connect to the internet anymore. So all those barriers are gone, right? But those are the
Yeah.
kind of barriers we had to overcome early on. And
Mhm.
and I told this story at DEF CON in 2021 to some friends, and this other guy said at the table was like $500, try 100,000 a month. And he
Yeah.
just starts going to the story of how he got into trouble with it. And I was like, it's so funny to me because every time you
Mhm.
read these origin stories of people like us
Mhm.
from that era, they have the same story,
Yeah.
right? It's that exact same thing, trying to figure out how to get to all these BBSs without raising a phone bill up. And it's funny to me because that's really kind of the commonality a lot of us have on how we got here and sort of, why we got into this in the first place was just to get access to information.
Mhm.
Simple as that,
Simple as that, and more cheaper and more accessible and to explore. Yeah, yeah.
right?
This is the essence, no, a bit of the term of hacker, a bit of this, no, to because I remember these first times, no, as you here in Europe was really expensive to make a call, and I remember that first blue boxes to make the calls
Hmm.
or to open the boxes in the neighborhood, try the maintenance line, which wasn't cost to anyone to make the calls with really cold, but with a computer there, and no crime. It was like to explore our world. And really, when you told these stories to the people now, they say, "Well, come on, what are you doing? You have now a lot of." But what's our life? Our life was like that. And talking about life a bit, the question more personal maybe is like, if has there been some important turning point in your life?
There's
Something
been
that.
several.
Mhm.
you know, for me, I point back to that '99 DEF CON where it was like, oh wait, this is all real, right? I mean, these are the people that I've been idolizing for
The
so long.
community, yeah.
Right. There is an actual community here, and then coming back to 2016 and kind of getting politically radicalized and starting
Mm.
Hackers.town, that became a thing, right?
Mhm. Nice.
Um, because at the heart of it, it's all of this is political, right? It's all
Of
how we're
course,
responding to survival in this weird cyberpunk dystopia we found
of
ourselves
course.
in. So, um, yeah. So that, and then starting and getting to be a part of the Baylor project's been really transformative. It's
Mhm.
all good.
And let's talk about books, for example, books or films, art, whatever you think that. What books have more influenced your life and why?
So I've got some favorites here. I actually pulled them out.
Mhm.
Not exactly a book. Some of you will probably be familiar with 2600.
Oh,
It's
nice
a
magazine.
it's a zine. Yep, really nice little zine that kind of over the years, it's not what I remembered it being early on, but at the same time, it keeps the culture piece alive, right? So it really does a good job of that. And so I for anybody early on or trying to learn what we're about, this is key stuff right here.
Nice,
So
nice.
it's a big one. Um, a friend of mine, I think I can call him a friend. We talk a lot. He seems okay. uh, but pretty well known guy, Space Rogue. He was a member of the Loft
Space
out of
Rogue.
Boston. He wrote a book called How Hackers Known as Loft Changed the World. This came out this year.
Nice.
Um, this is one of my favorite recent hacker stories. He also tells the same story about growing up rural that I did earlier. So that's one of those ones I was talking about that I like
Nice one.
for that reason. Um, this one is a little bit more irreverent. It's a collection of T files from the Calls of the Dead Cow
No.
called the Book of Cow. Um, Enlightenment through a poke in the eye is the subtitle. But it is just a collection of some of the more interesting T files they published. Some are technical, some are stupid, some are hilarious,
Yeah.
some are going to get you canceled in this day and age, right? So just it's a good read. It kind of gives you that a synopsis of the late '80s through the mid '90s, even into
Mhm.
the 2000s a little bit. So it's a
Nice.
good one for the cultural side of it and some interesting takes on what they were doing back then, right?
Mhm.
Um, and this one is not new,
Mhm.
but it is one of my favorites. I've got a bunch of signatures in it.
Mhm.
This is the Joseph Menn book, The Cult of the Dead Cow.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
how the original super hacking supergroup might just save the world. So this is one of my favorites. This is the one that Beto O'Rourke, a presidential candidate, was outed as being a member of the Cult of the Dead Cow in,
Yeah.
which Beto also tells that same story about evading long distance charges. So I always I crack up at that because we all have that same origin at the end of the day.
Mhm.
But yeah, so those are just a few that I had at hand that are probably some of my favorites. Um, beyond that, um, I don't know. There's a lot of books coming out of No Starch Press that do some interesting stuff on practical hacking, like the actual nuts and bolts. So
Mhm.
for anybody looking to learn, that's a good place to start. They've got some really good tutorial type stuff.
Mhm.
Um, Frack magazine, which just
Frack,
came back, is
of course.
great.
Yeah.
Um, that's probably my core stuff. Yeah.
Mhm. And what about films?
Films. I I I enjoy a lot of different films on this front. War games, of course,
War
the
games,
classic stuff. I
Matrix.
am one of the ones that loves hackers. I don't care what anybody says. I am able to enjoy both, right? It's okay to like hackers and sneakers. It's okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so, beyond that modern era stuff, I like some of the documentaries that have been done recently on like the Netflix stuff regarding like Aaron Schwartz, some of that stuff. There's been some really good work over there to do actual real documentary work. I still like the 2600 Freedom Downtime
Mhm.
documentary. I just rewatched that with the passing of Mitnick last year. And you know what? That guy was a complicated character for us all,
Yeah.
and at the same time, I got to give him credit. He launched 1,000 ships. I mean, he made a lot of new baby hackers when all this went down, and
Mhm. Mhm.
that's good,
Yeah,
right?
that's
So,
good. Mhm.
regardless of any opinion anybody has, ultimately, I think he did good. So, um,
And
yeah,
Mr. Robot, do you like it?
Mr. Robot was okay.
Mhm.
I didn't dislike it. I certainly I think it lost me in season 4, right?
Okay.
It's good. It's gritty. It felt good to watch,
Wow,
and it was
the season
technically
one.
accurate.
Yeah, the season one is amazing. NMAP is there.
Yeah.
Radar, our tools were there. Ecoin.
Nmap is also in the Matrix.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Everybody
yeah.
forgets that scene.
Yeah, yeah. And here, talking about the Matrix a bit, my question here is, do you think they watch to us? And maybe the question is, who watch the watchers? No, but AT&T, you are in the United States. We have a lot of documents that provide us information about how AT&T and the NSA, NSA, the National Security Agency, work together to spy on the email of the United States citizens, on the phone calls. What do you think about this? Do you think this is working for something, or?
I think it's more mundane than any of us really want to think. Um,
Mhm.
I think they record basically every data transaction, and then if there's a need to go back and find evidence, they use it.
Mhm.
I don't think they're actively monitoring like we think they are as often as they are.
Hmm.
Um,
You think so?
yeah,
Remember
yeah,
Echelon, remember
I do.
Carnivore. I think
Yeah,
that they have sophisticated the stuff.
they have tools to monitor that data, but I think over time it's become almost like you approach a threat hunting problem in InfoSec, right? Instead of actually doing real time, you're really sifting through the last 30 days of data, right?
Mhm.
So um, there's a lag they can take advantage of in there, right? And
Mhm.
so I think that's really probably how that would work. Just thinking about how I would approach it. That said, it's still to me it's anti-human rights. It's not the right way for anything to work. I don't I don't endorse people doing crimes or heinous acts and things like that, but I also think that as humans we should have somewhat of a right to privacy, and
Of
and
course.
that excuse doesn't
Uh,
really hold water.
because if you watch the statistics, supposedly in this dystopian society that we have created with
Mhm.
this, supposedly the crime show go lowering, no more, more
Yeah,
this.
we're at a historic low, really.
So yeah, but historically, not because of these systems that the corporations and the governments are created. So for
That's
what
right.
they are using for, just to sell us things, just to control political things.
Right.
Mm. So
Yeah. It's really about the monetization of the data at
mhm,
the end of the day.
exactly. So for me, privacy is important, not just because they always use this dichotomy thing about the, yeah, if you use the encryption, the criminal people will use the encryption, so we cannot catch them, no. So
But if
but
I don't use the encryption, the criminal people will use the not encryption against me.
so yeah.
So
So what's the point? And
yeah,
if they provide to us statistics that say, well, if we watch on you, the crime levels are lowering a lot. Okay, let's see privacy, security, freedom. Let's see if this in this triangle, what's the point that we can be agree. But I am not
right.
seeing this. I don't know. I don't know. Here we have the European laws are a bit different in the United States. You have there with the Patriot Act a really intrusive law.
Mhm.
What do you think about this dystopian American dystopian thing about the privacy thing? Do you think that we have lost the war on privacy?
No,
No,
I wouldn't have been part of the Valen project if I believed that.
you have faith.
Right. We can do this, but we have to build something new that's different. And we have to make it so expensive for people to mine data out of that new network that it becomes unprofitable to do so.
Yeah, but what happened, for example, with the mobile phones? Because of the mobile phones, Android, iPhone, Apple, and that's all the connections are can be tampered. I mean, like, what we need because we need to create a new internet, but also mobile phones. Like new hardware.
No, we have to write it off the back of the old internet. We just have to encrypt it and route it in a way that's untrackable,
Mhm, mhm. Yeah,
at least initially.
uh-huh. Even using their hardware, but creating layers to encrypt everything. No? Mhm.
That's right.
Mhm. And here the question will be: if do you remember any virus or ransomware or DDoS or any leak or time of attack that you will say, "Wow, this was amazing." Here, for example, talk about the Stuxnet, but do you like or do you have another?
I actually, Stuxnet was pretty amazing. Just
Wow,
how the way it went. I mean, that's mind blowing that it worked at
yeah,
all.
totally.
Um, but when I look at it, I really kind of look at the evolution of ransomware operators over the past few years, past 10 years.
Mhm.
I, I think it's interesting that we still call them gangs when they are full-fledged corporate entities with help desks and
Yeah, yeah.
affiliate programs, right?
Incredible.
These are businesses, and
Yeah,
we
yeah.
need to start thinking of them like businesses.
Mhm.
Um, and you know, I I think a lot of them are prolific but low hanging fruit, right? And
Mhm.
that's a good that's kind of an interesting take, but at least to me, um,
Mhm.
but then occasionally we see something like a WannaCry happen that's
WannaCry,
a
amazing.
world ender if
Yeah.
if Marcus Hutchins hadn't stepped in, right? So um,
And I
yeah,
love you before. I love
oh
you.
yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, 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 yeah. That way back when, yeah,
Wow, way
sure.
back.
So yeah, I mean, I particularly have more of an interest in the overall trend
Mhm.
of how they're
Mhm.
operating than I do any one particular hit.
Mhm. Nice.
Um, yeah,
Nice, but yeah, for example, we say this. We talk here in the podcast in the hacker style about, for example, Sasser, about the Blaster, the Morris worm. You know, like kind of old and how they have the sophisticated to criminal organization. Now they are using ransomware to steal money, and they have sophisticated a lot. So, for example, now more of the people talking about ransomware are talking about Loki, which is an amazing
right.
ransomware. You know, like how the story, the history of the virus of the BD community has changed. No, now they are stealing money. Before was like funny and you know this changed. And here the question is, and it's really important for this channel because we have a lot of hackers watching to us, is what do you think about confidential data leaks like Panama Papers, Pandora Papers? Do you think they are useful to
Um,
leak that kind of confidential?
I think they can be. I think they can also be very dangerous too, depending on what the contents are. I think it really comes down to who's leaking them and what their motivations are in many cases, right? So I I do believe that a lot of this has led to good information being released to the public sphere. But
Mhm,
I also think there's been damaging versions of it as well.
mhm,
I look at like distributed not denial of secrets and what their work has been. And if I had to point to one that I have a lot of respect for so far, it's been them.
mhm,
Um, I think there are good and bad cases here, just like anything, right?
mhm.
It really depends. It's both a quick way to see this information become public. And it's also a quick way for disinformation and misinformation to become public if we're not
Mhm,
careful,
mhm,
right?
mhm.
Because
Yeah,
we
but
have to be careful of sources.
supposedly you have journalists there working, no, in the distributed area of service leaks. You have journalists which will try to you know to analyze these data leaks, no. So and here the question is, what do you think about the full disclose? Are you agree with that? This is a really kind of old topic, but what do you think about full disclose?
I think that that should only be used in very specific situations. I
Mhm,
think if you can do responsible disclosure, you should do it.
mhm,
I think if you get no response, then full disclose is the only method left to help secure things and make
mhm.
it better.
Really nice. And here I transport you to the Matrix film in the moment in Morpheo. It's in front of Neo and have two pills and put the decision. And my question here for you is, what do you prefer, the red pill, which is accept an uncomfortable truth and full of suffering, or the blue pill, which remain in the comfort of ignorance?
In the traditional sense of the meaning from the film, the red pill.
The red pill. Uh-huh. And let's go a bit more further. If you could ask a question and get an absolute and real answer, what would you ask?
That's hard. That's a good
Yeah.
question. I would probably want to know. I'd probably want details on if I have to get super specific. I'd want details on things like alien cover-up conspiracies, things like that. I just want
Mhm,
to know what's there. And no, I don't really believe strongly. I'm curious. I need to know, was that all real?
mhm,
Um, I would also possibly ask about have we passed the quantum break yet? That would be the other one.
Ya habéis visto, hasta aquí este capítulo de hoy, un poquitín más corto, un poquitín casi un homenaje a ese gran grupo de Cult of the Dead Count, un poco para ponernos, digamos, para actualizarnos sobre cómo van los proyectos en The Hacker Town y ver un poco cómo la escena internacional sigue creciendo y sigue ahí, pasen los años que pasen. Y espero que os haya gustado. También abrimos un poco con esta entrevista, digamos, esa idea de que podemos hacer entrevistas por todo el mundo, vendrá mucha otra más gente de todo el planeta, esa es un poco la idea, iremos ampliando, esperemos que os guste, que la apoyéis también un poco. En el canal estamos trabajando mucho porque esto esté traducido, pues en este caso, a 7 idiomas diferentes, y yo creo que esta entrevista abre un poco, digamos, la puerta a que más gente de la escena internacional se anime a venir. Os voy a pedir pues lo clásico, por favor, seguid suscribiendo, seguid dando like para que más gente que no nos conoce o que nos ve desde fuera, pues vea que este es un sitio donde puede venir a charlar tranquilamente y a mostrar sus pasiones, en este caso la que nos une a todos en esta gran comunidad que es la comunidad del hacking. Y poco más, sí que os puedo dar alguna exclusiva, un poco también por dar más tiempo y por contaros alguna cosa más, de que en los siguientes capítulos, yo voy bastante por delante de lo que estamos viendo publicado, pues vamos a tener unas entrevistas muy interesantes. Vamos a hablar, por ejemplo, con una persona que trabaja en una unidad de búsqueda de personas desaparecidas. Vamos a hablar un poco de ingeniería forense, de cómo se buscan pistas para cuando alguien desaparece en los móviles, en los computadores, etcétera, etcétera. Y también vamos a tener una charla muy interesante con una antropóloga. Vamos a hablar de la esencia del ser humano. ¿Qué es un ser humano? ¿En qué se está convirtiendo un ser humano? ¿Qué está haciendo las redes sociales y el Internet con aquel pequeño mono que no hace mucho tiempo se bajó de un árbol y comenzó a caminar sobre la Tierra, y que ahora sueña con viajar a otros planetas? Así que no os perdáis los siguientes capítulos, seguid siendo fieles al canal de Hacker Style, porque si algo queremos transmitir, creo desde el corazón y yo sinceramente, es una pasión y una idea de que podemos todos juntos y todas juntas hacer de este un mundo mejor. Así que un beso. Hasta la próxima.
So fly, a young, lovable, huggable type of guy. And everything is to the back with a little slack. Cause inside out is wicked, 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 whack.